a violent armed clash erupted in Okigwe, Imo State, between the Biafran Liberation Army and troops from the Nigerian army and fighters allegedly loyal to Asari Dokubo and General Musa. The incident took place on May 8, 2025, with heavy gunfire and intense fighting reported from the morning through the day. A commander of the Biafra Liberation Army, identified as Gentle, captured an opponent, accusing him of betrayal and threatening the Imo State Governor, Hope Uzodinma, directly. He issued a chilling warning to Hope Uzodinma, stating that hiring soldiers won't protect him and likening the fight for Biafra to the fight Boko Haram wages for an Islamic State. He claimed to be an independent group fighting for the actualization of Biafra's independence. He emphasized that their goal is to restore Biafra and resist both internal political betrayal and external northern dominance. Accusations were made against Fulani elites and northern politicians, accusing them of land grabs, election manipulation, and media control to dominate the South. He ends with a defiant call for Biafran unity, warning of more chaos if people fail to resist oppression and predicting that Nigeria is headed toward total collapse. It was the morning of May 8, 2025, in the usually quiet but tense region of Okigwe, located in Imo State, southeastern Nigeria. The sun had barely risen when the stillness of the town was shattered by the deafening echoes of gunfire. What began as a normal day for residents quickly descended into chaos and terror. For hours, a fierce gun battle raged between fighters of the Biafran Liberation Army and soldiers of the Nigerian army, reportedly reinforced by irregular forces loyal to Alhaji Mujahid Asari Dokubo and a commander named General Musa. These weren't just rumors spread in hushed tones. This was live, on-the-ground conflict. People ran for their lives, hiding in their homes or fleeing into the bushes as the thunder of bullets echoed across the land. Videos quickly surfaced online. One in particular made waves, broadcasted by Magnetic Politics TV on YouTube. The footage, shaky and grainy, captured what many called a live-action war scene, something you'd expect from a movie, not real life. It was raw. It was disturbing. It was very real. In the middle of the video, standing boldly in front of a camera, was a man identified as one of the key field commanders of the Biafran Liberation Army. His name, or perhaps his code name, was Gentle. Gentle was not hiding his face. He stood over a man, reportedly captured during the confrontation, whose face was bloodied, body weak, and spirit visibly broken. Gentle looked directly into the camera and began speaking. But he wasn't speaking to random viewers. He was speaking directly to Hope Uzodinma, the current governor of Imo State. He said the governor's name 3 times, Hope, 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 like a chant, as if summoning him. Gentle's voice was filled with anger, and his words carried the weight of deep-rooted resentment and rage. Gentle accused Hope Uzodinma of betrayal, of being complicit in what he called the oppression and occupation of Biafran lands. He told the governor without blinking that hiring soldiers and moving around with military escorts would not save him. He said that what was happening in Okigwe was just the beginning and warned Hope Uzodinma that he would meet the same fate as the man lying before him. Gentle then drew a sharp comparison between the Biafran struggle and the jihadist campaign of Boko Haram in the northern part of Nigeria. He said, "Look at Boko Haram. They are fighting for an Islamic State, and you people, your people, are the ones sponsoring them, arming them." It was an accusation not just against Hope Uzodinma, but against a broader northern Nigerian political and military structure that many Southeasterners view with suspicion and hostility. Gentle was adamant about one thing: the group he belonged to was not the Eastern Security Network. They were not the indigenous people of Biafra. According to him, they were an independent revolutionary force known as the Biafran Liberation Army. Their mission, he claimed, was not based on politics, but on the need to correct historical injustices and restore the independent Republic of Biafra. He stated plainly that the people of the Southeast had been enslaved, exploited, and dominated by northern political elites for too long. Gentle said they were done waiting for justice through peaceful means. He declared that it was time to fight. As the gun battle continued that day, more disturbing information emerged. Locals reported seeing armed men dressed in what looked like hybrid military attire, some in camouflage, others in civilian clothes with military vests and weapons. This suggested a mix of formal and irregular fighters, possibly confirming reports that some of the forces fighting against the Biafran Liberation Army were mercenaries or private militia aligned with Alhaji Mujahid Asari Dokubo and General Musa. It was unclear whether these individuals were under any legal military chain of command or acting under private contracts. This lack of clarity only added to the sense of lawlessness and fear among the residents. In a different segment of the same video, the speaker continued his passionate rant. He declared that Fulani elites from northern Nigeria had for years imposed their dominance through violence, rigged elections, land grabs, and media manipulation. He claimed that they had come all the way from across the Sahel to steal lands in the south, influence elections, and ultimately destroy the Biafran people. His voice rose with fury as he warned that without Biafra, the people of the southeast were as good as finished. He warned that unless Biafrans stood together and resisted, there would be no future for them or their children. The video also made references to journalists who had been killed in the past for speaking out against government injustices. One name stood out: Dele Giwa. Gentle and his fellow speaker lamented the death of Dele Giwa, describing him as the only honest journalist Nigeria ever had. They blamed the northern elite, particularly former military ruler General Ibrahim Babangida, for Dele Giwa's death and for the broader culture of media manipulation and suppression in the country. There was also a strong spiritual element to the message. The speaker repeatedly warned that divine punishment awaited those who stayed silent in the face of oppression. He said God would not forget the sins committed against the people. He pointed out the irony that as the number of churches and mosques increased across Nigeria, so too did the level of suffering, corruption, and violence. According to him, these religious institutions had become tools of deceit, preaching miracles while ignoring the fundamental issues plaguing the nation. He went further to predict the complete collapse of Nigeria. He said Somalia, a country known for decades of conflict and instability, would soon be better than Nigeria. He advised people to start applying for visas to Somalia, not as a joke, but as a bitter metaphor for how bad things had gotten in Nigeria. He said that when evil was allowed to thrive, when lies were rewarded and truth punished, destruction would follow. And according to him, that destruction was now at Nigeria's doorstep. The most jarring part of the message was not just the anger or the threats. It was the sense of conviction. These were not random militants shouting in the dark. They believed they were freedom fighters. They saw themselves as the only hope left for their people. Whether one agrees with their methods or not, it was impossible to ignore the depth of belief behind their actions. As the hours passed, the gunfire eventually subsided, but the scars of the day were etched deeply into the memory of Okigwe's residents. Many civilians were injured, though exact figures were unclear. Local sources said both sides suffered losses, but it was impossible to get independent verification because reporters and humanitarian workers were too afraid to enter the area. Reactions started pouring in. Some in the southeast hailed the Biafran Liberation Army as heroes standing up for their people in a way that no politician had dared to do. Others condemned the violence and warned that such clashes would only bring more suffering to already traumatized communities. Human rights groups called for an investigation into the use of irregular fighters by the Nigerian army, especially those allegedly tied to Alhaji Mujahid Asari Dokubo and General Musa. But the Nigerian government remained mostly silent in the immediate aftermath. No official statement was released by the military or the presidency within the first 24 hours. This silence only fueled speculation that the government was struggling to control the situation or was possibly complicit in escalating it. Hope Uzodinma, the governor of Imo State, also did not issue a direct response. Whether out of fear or strategic caution, his office remained quiet despite the fact that his name had been directly invoked in a chilling threat. The people of Imo State waited anxiously, wondering if retaliation or more violence would follow. The events in Okigwe were not just about one battle. They were symbolic of a much deeper crisis in Nigeria, a nation still haunted by the wounds of its civil war over 50 years ago. The Biafran movement never truly died. It went underground, it evolved, and now it appears to be resurfacing in a far more dangerous and militarized form. The Biafran Liberation Army is not a recognized group under Nigerian law. In fact, the government considers all armed Biafran movements to be terrorist organizations. But the fighters do not see themselves that way. They see themselves as revolutionaries, as liberators, and they are becoming more vocal, more organized, and more willing to use force. It is too early to say whether the battle in Okigwe will spark a wider conflict, but it has already shifted the conversation. It has forced the nation to once again confront the ghost of Biafra, a ghost that has never been buried, only ignored. And as long as the issues of injustice, marginalization and violence remain unresolved, that ghost will keep returning, louder and more dangerous each time. This confrontation marks a critical turning point. It is a reminder that silence from leaders can sometimes be more dangerous than the violence of rebels. It is a warning that if dialogue, justice and reconciliation are not urgently pursued, Nigeria risks sliding further into a fragmented state where armed groups become the primary voice of the people. As for the people of Okigwe, they now live with the fear that more days like May 8, 2025 are coming. Days filled with gunshots instead of mourning songs. Days when children's cries are drowned out by bullets. Days when the fight for a homeland takes place not in courtrooms or parliaments, but in blood-soaked streets. And through it all, the question remains: how many more people must fall before those in power finally listen? The gun battle that erupted between the Biafran Liberation Army and a joint force of the Nigerian army and fighters believed to be loyal to Mujahid Asari Dokubo and General Musa was not just another flashpoint in the region. It marked a dangerous escalation in the growing tensions between pro-Biafran movements and the Nigerian government's forces, and it offered the world a chilling glimpse into a country teetering on the brink of full-blown internal collapse. From the very early hours of that day, residents of Okigwe woke up to the sound of gunfire echoing through the hills and valleys. The quiet of the dawn was shattered by the relentless blast of automatic rifles and the occasional roar of what many residents believed were rocket-propelled grenades or improvised explosive devices. In many neighborhoods, people abandoned their homes and took refuge in the surrounding bush, seeking safety wherever they could find it. Women clutched their children tightly, and men stood watchfully, unsure of where the next shot would come from, or whether it would find its target in them. According to first-hand accounts shared in YouTube broadcasts and social media posts by Magnetic Politics TV and other citizen journalists, the fighting was nothing short of apocalyptic. There was fear, there was anger, and there was desperation. The Biafran Liberation Army, led in this encounter by a commander known as Gentle, did not merely show up to send a message. They arrived with the clear intent to overwhelm and dominate the Nigerian forces in that region. And to some extent, they succeeded. Numerous reports confirmed that many Nigerian soldiers were overwhelmed and either injured, killed, or fled the battlefield altogether. Commander Gentle himself appeared in a video released during the heat of the gunfight. In it, he was seen standing next to a man who had allegedly been captured from the opposing force. His face was stern, his tone bitter, and his words deliberate. He accused the man of betrayal and proceeded to send a direct venom-laced warning to the Imo State Governor, Hope Uzodinma. Gentle did not mince words. He condemned the governor's decision to rely on hired soldiers and mercenaries, insisting that such measures would not save him from the wrath of a people determined to reclaim their homeland. In what many described as one of the most provocative statements of the year, Gentle compared their Biafran struggle to the insurgency waged by Boko Haram in Nigeria's northeast. But unlike Boko Haram, which he accused the Nigerian government of covertly supporting, he claimed that the Biafran Liberation Army was acting independently and without foreign or political backing. They were, in his words, a group of committed individuals driven by conscience, history, and ancestral obligation to restore the land they believed had been stolen from them by Nigeria's political elite, especially those from the north. His message was not limited to Governor Hope Uzodinma. It was directed at the entire Nigerian political structure, especially the Fulani-dominated power blocks in the north. Gentle accused northern elites of orchestrating a slow and deliberate conquest of the south through a combination of land appropriation, rigged elections, media propaganda, and strategic violence. He claimed that the Nigerian state had long since been hijacked, and that the time had come for Biafrans to rise in unity or perish under oppression. As the fighting raged, several videos circulated online showing dead bodies lying on the ground in pools of blood. Smoke curled into the air from burning vehicles and structures. Gunmen in camouflage moved quickly through streets, some of them chanting pro-Biafran slogans, others filming the action with smartphones to send a message to the world. These were not isolated gunmen acting on impulse. They moved with military precision and were well equipped, indicating a level of organization that many observers had not expected. Inside these videos and broadcasts, voices could be heard crying out, "Everywhere is dry," a slang term meaning that the area had been cleared of life or activity due to the intensity of the fighting. These expressions painted a vivid picture of a town transformed into a war zone, a once thriving community now turned to rubble and silence under the hail of gunfire. More disturbing than the violence was the deep-rooted sense of betrayal and bitterness expressed by the pro-Biafran fighters. They spoke about how leaders from their own communities had sold them out, how political ambition had blinded men like Governor Hope Uzodinma and others who, instead of standing with their people, had chosen to side with Nigeria's central authorities. There was talk of a failed generation, politicians who had done nothing but enrich themselves while pretending to speak for the oppressed. One particular part of the video that drew widespread attention was the segment where Commander Gentle declared, "We are not Eastern Security Network. We are not indigenous people of Biafra. We are a different group entirely. This statement further complicated the already fragmented Biafran movement. It suggested that new factions were emerging, possibly more radical and unpredictable than those previously known. These groups appeared to be breaking away from the more organized, politically active wings, like the indigenous people of Biafra under Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, or the Eastern Security Network. This is the end of our news update. Please click the icon on the top right corner of your screen to watch my next video. You will enjoy it. I will see you again in my next update. Enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye for now.